across the country restaurants are continuing to play a central role in community life, employment and the wider economy. However, many, as we know on the show, are now facing growing challenges. New figures from the RAI, the Restaurants Association of Ireland, reveal that rising costs are forcing businesses to cut back, with many reducing opening hours or staff time just to stay afloat. To tell us more about what's happening in the sector, I'm joined now on the line by Robbie McCauley. Robbie's with Homestead, Cottage and Doolin, and from Sweet and Green in Ennis, Frank Landy with us as well. And thanks to both of you for being on the show. And Robbie, how have things changed for you at Homestead Cottage over the past couple of years, and what does your day-to-day reality look like right now?
Hi Alan, thank you very much for having us on. Yeah, I mean, look, we only opened in July 2023, so we only seen the 9% VAT for a couple of months. You know, so we didn't get to avail of it best. But I mean, look, I'd say especially the last 3 or 4 months, rising costs again have hit us. It's been the last 2 years of consistent rising costs from everything from utilities, insurances, produce. I mean, last year, I'm sure everyone's heard, the price of lamb and beef hit an all-time high. And, well, at one side, it's great for the farmers, and, I don't begrudge them for getting a good price. I think, it's deserved. It has meant, it's driving costs up for restaurants and the hospitality sector. Rise in minimum wage, rise in national insurance, the government's pension scheme. These things have all kind of contributed to what's already been a tough time, and the average person at the moment has less in their pocket to spend. So one of the first things that's going to be hit is hospitality. And I think it'll be interesting now to see government figures for tourism numbers, because from what we're seeing and what we're hearing from people, tourism numbers are way down so far from the start of the year. And we're hoping now for a strong summer. Sounds like a lot of Irish people will holiday in Ireland, and I think that'll be great, for the hospitality sector. But it is, I think it's going to be a very tough year, and we're hoping that the government, will support the sector with a reduction in that. But that being said, I don't think it's a given at the moment. But I think it could see a huge number of businesses closing, and higher unemployment in the hospitality sector, which would be horrific for especially rural Ireland, where we rely so heavily on tourism and hospitality.
And Frank, just to bring you in, I think one of the last times you were with us was in around the time of the increase in the commercial rates, and your frustration was palpable at the time, given that, like Robbie, you're dealing with a lot of, if not all, the same issues. Has anything changed in the intervening period, or are you still facing the same challenges, or have they gotten more difficult?
Well, if you think about it, the war in Iran and the Straits of Hormuz, which is on the top of everybody's tongue, has definitely devastated everybody's energy bill, has definitely devastated everybody's gas supply bill. So we pointed out, even at the time of the rates, just to say, listen, give us a little bit of a breather, let us recover, let us try and come around from the hardship of maybe the 2 previous years with the war in Ukraine and so on and so forth. And we tried to point these things out. And I'll echo everything Robbie said there. Footfall, nor the influx of that post St. Patrick's Day tourism boom that usually comes. It just isn't there. It feels a little bit flat, and every cafe owner, hotelier and restaurateur will tell you the same. There's just something in the air, and even if it's people, and I do my own shop for my own family, even if it's people just minding what they have, just unsure about the future. And I know some people got an awful wake-up call when they filled up their oil tanks after the Christmas holidays in January, February, March there. And they're probably still reeling from that shock. But in rural Ireland, footfall and tourism is hugely important to us. And our cafes and our restaurants, they're the hubs of the community. But like Robbie, I would say there's something in the air. It just hasn't lifted. The 9% VAT rate is a given. It will help us out. It will help everybody out through a little bit of cash flow. And it's just the government's way of saying, listen, yeah, we've got your ear. And we can't fault the government in too many ways in that respect. But the energy prices, I think it just came out yesterday that the Irish consumers are paying the highest rates in Europe or something.
Yeah, highest electricity rates in Europe, yeah.
highest electricity rates, we'll say the highest energy rates, we'll say, because that electricity feeds down through everything. So, like, there has to be something somewhere that it can be looked at. But even you look at the energy companies and you see the profits and everybody's making. People are profiteering when the ordinary people are suffering. And going back to how will it affect us, I love the summer students, the influx of summer students who come work in Sweet and Green. And they're such part of our Sweet and Green team that if there's 5 on any given day, on a Tuesday and Wednesday during the summer, hopefully now that isn't 4 students and 1 student is losing out in a day's work. We would like to see that just we're waiting for the tide to come in, and I think I'd echo what Robbie said in the fact that it's just a little flat at the moment.
Yeah, and just on the point that Frank was making there, Robbie, that, you know, the hospitality is often a first job for young people. Are you finding it harder to offer those opportunities now?
Oh, look, 100%. I mean, I think, you know, I think one of the most difficult things about people getting into hospitality and stuff is it's been hammered consistently through, you know, people telling of horror stories, low pay and whatnot. But, like, you know, end of the day, hospitality gives so much to people. You know, someone who's coming in and doing their first job in hospitality, it gives them the confidence. You know, your customer facing, you know, when it comes to organisation, everything, you know, and, you know, being part of a team, meeting people, you know, I think it's something that, especially now with the like social media and less and less face-to-face time that young people are having, and, you know, you see with social anxiety and stuff, it's something which really actually is it's such a tool for people to grow, you know, and I think it's something which we should really be proud of, you know, and not kind of push people away from hospitality. You know, hospitality is a great industry. We have some, you know, we've a great sort of history, and, you know, we're known all over the world for great hospitality in Ireland. And, you know, like, the Irish government came out there at the beginning of the year saying how they were going to push for the next tourism push will be for food tourism. Well, it's great for them to say it, but we've yet to see anything. You know, Clare County Council haven't done anything to try to push food tourism, and I think it's an absolute shocking shame. You know, we've fantastic food producers, we've great hoteliers, restaurant owners, cafes, all these things. You know, like the figures show how big of an employer hospitality sector is, and, you know, that should really be supported, I think, at a local level as much as a national level. You know, and like Frank was saying, you know, when the rate increases came, you know, it was a real kick in the teeth for a lot of people, and you know, I just feel like, you know, Clare County Council haven't really listened to the hospitality sector to try to give them some bit of a boost or a bit of support.
And I'm sure, Frank, you feel like there's a lack of support. And what has that resulted in? I mean, both you and Robbie are talking about, you know, hiring students, young people might still be able to do that, but it'd be less than previously. In terms of full-time staff, have you had to look at, or are you thinking about reducing staff hours, or even opening hours, you know, reducing those on a daily basis, or maybe closing on certain days? Or is that something you have implemented or are considering?
Yeah, well, we usually supplement our full-time staff with some part-timers who would be the college lads who've come in over the summer. And of course, their hours will be affected. That is non-negotiable. The margins are tight. In hospitality. And when you have little independent businesses like Robbie's Homestead Cottage is a shining light for an independent business in County Clare, like above in Doolin in the west of Ireland, next stop New York kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like these are the people that need to be supported. You know, it's not that we're crying out looking for help and our hand out the whole time. We're just looking for innovative ways that could, you know, help with the margins. The margins in hospitality, you've done, everybody here listening on the radio have done their food shop, and I don't have to tell you the price of a bar of chocolate or the price of a bag of carrots or the price of whatever it is. Everything has gone through the roof. What might have cost you 108 could now be 168, and it's the exact same in what comes in the back door of Sweet and Green. And, you know, with what we try and do, we try and support the Santolas of this world, the Burn Smokehouses of this world, the CS Fish of this world, our local butchers and Malays and Mears, and, you know, we try to support our own local. So we're not just an independent standalone business. We're supporting all the little independent artisan producers that by God, County Clare should be very, very proud of. And everybody just needs the little help, the little extra float on their boat. And you know, we're not crying out, with the hand out the whole time to government. The government done more than enough by reinstating the 9% VAT rate. And it was a huge incentive to us. And to be honest with you, speaking to some of my own colleagues and some of my own friends in the industry. Like, it's something that they're battling to get to. They're battling to get to the 1st of July, because they know come the 1st of April, there might be an extra a few pound in the kitty to go towards vital needs upgrades. More than likely, this isn't somebody buying a property in Portugal. This is somebody upgrading an oven, or somebody upgrading a tile in the floor, or paint in the walls. It's reinvested. Everybody reinvests. Everybody loves to look after their own little corner, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be as independent hospitality providers. We're just trying to, fly the flag for County Clare, and any help is much appreciated.
And in terms of help, you've both, Robbie, touched on the VAT rate that is going to be cut back to 9% again from the 1st of July. But in terms of any additional support, and we've previously spoken with hospitality reps who've talked about the significant number of people employed within hospitality in the country, some 270,000 people. How hopeful are you of anything additional coming your way in terms of support? Because, we know the budget's coming up in October, but we were only talking on the programme yesterday about how there may not be the cuts to the student contribution fee that had been expected because of money needed to help with deficits in the Department of Education. We know with the supports that the government offered after the fuel protests, that who knows how long they will continue for, if any additional ones will come in because of the war in Iran, and there's no end in sight to that. Are you hopeful or confident of any additional supports beyond the 9% rate coming in on the 1st of July?
Look, I can't see the government doing anything more when it comes to additional supports. And like I don't want to be here crying the poor mouth constantly about hospitality. Like, everyone is struggling. I want to make that clear. We do understand everyone's struggling, but it's like Frank said. When you're seeing that you're paying the highest fuel prices in Europe, energy prices in Europe, electricity prices in Europe, and we're seeing how so much money squandered when it comes to government schemes and stuff. I think this is the frustration, with whether it's hospitality or anyone. I personally find, or something that's very frustrating is that, like I said, when the government said about food-led tourism and stuff, and so little's been done about it, there should be a campaign now over in like the UK, France, Europe, where this year, when we're not relying on the American tourists coming with everything that's going on, that we can promote Ireland for its fantastic produce, and it's good hospitality, it's good food that the food scene in Ireland has changed so dramatically in the last 30 years. We still have, sadly, a name on the continent of poor food, which isn't the case. And it should be that we're championing it. And tourists are looking for the next place to go, and food does play a big role in it. And
and it's funny you mention it, Rob, because obviously Rory McIlroy's comments around the Masters, he can say it was a joke. Did he do any favours? He can say it was a joke, but it fed into a perception, and I think, as you would say, an incorrect perception that Irish food isn't great.
Incorrect. And this year, Ireland was Ireland hosted the UK and Irish Michelin Awards up in Dublin at the beginning of the year, and there was no government funding, no government body got behind it, which I just think it's a slap in the face when it comes to food tourism and the hospitality sector, because I understand that not every business is going towards that, but it's internationally recognised awards, which is has it's great esteem, and we should have celebrated the fact that they were highlighting Ireland. Last year they had it over in Scotland. We were lucky to go over, and Scottish seafood was it was the star of the show, and people came out of it being like, oh my goodness, what an amazing reception that they had. The Scottish Government and Glasgow City Council and Scottish Seafood got behind it so much. It would have been great to have seen, the IFA showcase an Irish beef more there, or a lot of these government bodies, which I just feel like a lot of these things are kind of empty promises. It's a great tagline to say, we're for food tourism, but there's very little to back it up. And while cutting VAT is fantastic, but when numbers are down and number of people coming in are down, it's going to make less of an impact. What we really need to be doing is looking at how can we attract more and new markets. for tourism and food-led tourism.
Well, the one thing I'd say about Irish food is that Gordon Ramsay himself has been effusive about the quality of food. He said it's about time we shone a spotlight on Ireland because it's the sleeping beauty of European cuisine. And I think we can all agree he's a very tough man to please. So if he's saying that, our food offering must be strong. Just to finish with yourself, Frank, you know, and Robbie's touched on it. I'm sure you would support a campaign to promote Irish food and whatnot abroad to encourage for more foreign visitors to our country. But if there is a downturn in terms of international visitors, I know we were speaking with industry reps from within Clare from the accommodation part of the hospitality offering, and they were reasonably confident that the domestic market would, you know, if not buttress any loss in foreign visitors, that you know, they weren't overly concerned. Being in Ennis, would you be hopeful that would be the case in terms of if there is a dip in the international visitors, that'll be filled somewhat by domestic visitors and that will be okay?
You would hope so. And, you know, an Irish person loves a deal as well. An Irish person loves to say, I got 4 nights in the west of Ireland for the price of 3 or something like that. So we all have a part to play in getting the tourists down here. And I know there's a lot of Dubs that come down every year to their summer homes in the West Clare. And, you know, we all have a part to play in making sure that they feel that they're getting value for money. And value for money is being the big thing now at the moment. And everybody needs to just look at the price structure, the point structure, but more importantly in the fact that we can just make sure that, you know, that we're proud of what we have and we showcase what we have, and there's no better person than doing that than Robbie above in Homestead Cottage. But on a side note, we had a girl last year who worked the summer with us, and she told me when she was leaving, going back to college in the second week in September, she said, Frank, I've paid half my accommodation, my parents have paid the other half from what she earned in Sweden. And I thought that was one of the most beautiful things I ever heard, that she put her head down for the summer and she was able to save a little bit to contribute towards her parents, and she wasn't relying on the government to reduce such and such fees or so on and so forth. And she did it herself, and she did it working part-time in Sweden.
Okay, well, that's nice to hear. Look, we have to leave it there, but my thanks to both of you for being with us. Frank Landy there from Cheers. Anytime. Thank you, Robbie McCauley there from Homestead, Cottage and Doolin, and Frank Landy from Sweet and Green in Ennis with us on Morning Focus.